866.
I was tempted to do another book report. As you know, I have a sort of flaw that way. The Saudi Ministry of Finance recently released its 2023 pre-budget report, and it's 38 pages of, quote, key fiscal targets and economic indicators, unquote. I could barely, keep myself from that. And it's an example of good government, but as exciting as that sounds, I'm heading in another direction. Instead, I want to pull the strings a little bit on this recent announcement, which is actually also a good example of governance, good governance. So the announcement is the Saudi Ministry of Commerce announces 10 initiatives to develop e-commerce stores and improve consumer service quality. So there's 10 of these initiatives. They include e-commerce retailers are required to include all warranty information. They're required to diversify shipping and delivery alternatives. They're required to offer a variety of payment options, required to include an Arabic video explaining the product. So anyway, the Ministry of Commerce reiterated that it is collaborating with e-stores to undertake these initiatives to improve the services provided by the sector. So this is all well and good. It's clear the Ministry of Commerce is trying to promote a more uniformly positive e-commerce retail experience for Saudis. But that is not the most interesting part to me. The interesting part to me is, how did the ministry decide on these 10 initiatives? And as it turns out, these 10 initiatives were based on a Ministry of Commerce survey that had more than 6,000 responses detailing challenges faced by e-commerce retail customers. So in short, before the ministry introduced any regulations on the matter, they asked for input from consumers. And the reason I want to, draw this out a little bit is because this is a theme not only with the Ministry of Commerce, but with many Saudi ministries. And a primary vehicle for these surveys has been the National Competitiveness Center, the NCC, also called TASIR. So the NCC was established in 2019, and it's an independent government center. It's actually under the aegis of the Council of Economic and Development Affairs, CEDA, which is, as we know, is a paramount commercial and economic body in Saudi Arabia. Its chairman is Dr. Majid Al-Kasabi. Is actually Dr. Majid Al-Kasabi, Minister of Commerce and Acting Minister of Media. The CEO of NCC is Dr. Yaman Al-Muteri, who is also the Deputy Minister of Commerce. So, among other things, the NCC seeks to, quote, improve the kingdom's ranking in relevant global indicators and reports by studying, identifying, and analyzing the obstacles and challenges facing the public and private sectors, proposing solutions, initiatives, and recommendations, unquote. One of the ways the NCC works to achieve this goal is to solicit customer and consumer feedback through two platforms. One is a private sector feedback platform, and the other is a public consultation platform. So, for example, the Ministry of Commerce has used the NCC to implement at least 16 surveys, some of which are still ongoing. It's kind of interesting to look at the portal. You can see how many days are left in order to, offer your feedback or suggestions. So at least 16 surveys in which the public can weigh in with comments and suggestions on subjects ranging from consumer protection law, arbitration law, debt collection, and so on. But the Ministry of Commerce is far from the only agency to utilize the NCC platform to date. And NCC was established in 2019. The NCC has conducted surveys for a variety of agencies, including 148 in the health sector, 93 in trade, economy, and investment, 9 education and science sector, 22 judicial and human rights sector, 24 labor and social welfare sector. So to return to the beginning of this one big thing, this issuance by the Ministry of Commerce of e-commerce retail guidelines wasn't just a matter of sort of bureaucrats getting together and making rules, which is often the case. It was a result of seeking input from actual customers and consumers. And this process is being played out, as noted, across multiple sectors by multiple ministries and agencies. So this is good governance. And obviously, good governance is probably the key element of public satisfaction with government. And Saudi like every country, doesn't always get its rules and regulations right. But this widespread effort by ministries to actually ask the regulated how and what they would like to see regulated is noteworthy, and I think it's very promising. As I mentioned back to the beginning, it's an example of good governance.
Very interesting. Very good one, Richard. I mean, if you think about the disconnect now in the United States between governance and the people, and there just increasingly seems to be a huge change or a huge like gap growing between what people want and how the government works here. And obviously we're a democracy with checks and balances. We have a president, we have Congress, and we have a judiciary, and they all have different powers. They're all trying to work together. And like they say about democracy, it's the worst system ever, except for all the other ones. But the idea is that it's sort of slow and that it ends up in the right direction, ends up going in the right place. This is a very different style of that, but with a similar result. It's putting its hands, e-governance. It's like really having your hand as a government, as a leader on what the people want, and then creating policy, like you just said, based on what the market wants, what buyers and sellers want, what they think and feel. Part of the reason why you do this is so you don't have to every 6 months completely change and adapt after you've already promulgated regulations. You're essentially saying, hey, this is what we think everybody wants to do. What do you guys think? Okay, let's get the feedback. All right, so this is what the rules are now. We have 10 of them, or I think you said 10.
Yeah.
And so like let's do this and see how it goes. I mean, part of the hallmark of Vision 2030 is the ability to change what you're doing as a leader in the government space if it's not working, or if a KPI is missed. Well, you tried, maybe adjust it, or hey, we're not going to do this anymore, we're going to do this. Like the adaptability of Vision 2030 with governance in Saudi Arabia is one of the strongest things you can see that's different than it was before 2016 when it was announced.
There's a lot of some big ideas in that comment, and I agree. I mean, with regard to the U.S., we're speaking of governments, and in my opinion, one of our biggest issues is sort of complete collapse in terms of effectiveness of the legislative branch, specifically Congress.
Yep.
But that's a whole different question. Speaking directly to two of your points, one being part of the compact of Vision 2030. When you're talking about VAT and reducing subsidies and increasing prices, as part of that compact is from the government side, they will provide better governance. And so much of what's being done is trying to provide that, this feedback. And the other thing is, I think it's been surprising and encouraging, and actually Dr. Majid Al-Kasabi, who's mentioned in this one big thing, and I think we both agree is a superb government official in any place at any time.
He's incredible.
He's just a really, really capable person. When he visited here, Washington, he spoke at CSIS in 2017, and he specifically said, look, this is our vision, this is our plan, but it's 2 steps up, 1 step back. We're going to get things wrong, and we're going to have to adjust. It's not a straight line. These aren't his exact words, but his point was exactly that we will move forward, we'll assess the situation, we'll make adjustments, we'll move forward again. And this interaction that you're seeing, the National Competitiveness Center, and these surveys, an example, these interactions between, the governed and the government and the governed, reflects that commitment to better governments. It reflects that commitment to, all right, let's understand what we're trying to regulate better. So we can regulate better. And this is it shows. Oh,
yep.
I know it shows.
And this is an interesting space where you're seeing this type of, adaptable governance and this sort of responsive governance. E-commerce and is still sort of new in Saudi Arabia. I was reading a little bit about the USTR. The USTR had some information about this recently. By 2024, the number of Saudi internet users for e-commerce selling and buying is expected to reach 33.6 million. That's an increase of 42% from 2019. I don't have the stats for the US, but the US is a little bit ahead of Saudi Arabia on e-commerce. But Saudis like to shop. I mean, there's still the coolest places to go in Riyadh right now are the new malls that are being built, which is just really impressive. And there's so much to do there. And it's more of a social thing. So people in Saudi Arabia like to shop in person a lot still. So this is something that Saudi Arabia wants to get right. They don't want to have, because e-commerce is huge and it can add a lot to the GDP and has enormous potential, but you want to get it right. You don't want to have some rules go out there and have people be like, well, this is not help me want to buy stuff online and sell stuff online. So yeah, this is really a good one, Richard. I mean, again, this is what we do at the 966 is, there's oil prices dominating the headlines. There's all the other things going on. And it's like, this is something that's going to be meaningful for the next 5 years. And it isn't dominating headlines that we're giving attention to right now.
And it's a habit that's encouraging in terms of the government. And let's cross market here, because you mentioned the e-commerce. In our Sustig Review, our daily newsletter, the most widely read newsletter on Saudi Arabia in the world, there's an excellent, and we feature it. It's one of the top 4 featured article by Checkout.com on the e-commerce market in Saudi Arabia, and it's really interesting. And let me just quote quickly from that. According to the report, this is Checkout.com's 3rd annual report on digital transformation. 91% of Saudi consumers now shop e-commerce. Perhaps even more striking is that a staggering 14% of them say they shop online at least once per day. The future looks even brighter, with 78% of consumers in Saudi saying they will maintain or increase their current level e-commerce spending into 2023. So there you have it. And this is why Ministry of Commerce sees fit to go out and ask consumers what they think of the e-commerce environment, and in turn respond with specific guidelines for e-commerce vendors and retailers on how they can better serve the market. It's a virtuous cycle, and it's the result of a commitment to better governance.